The Srivijaya Empire was a pivotal force in shaping the course of human history, its influence echoing across the centuries like ripples on a vast ocean. As a dominant maritime power, it bridged the ancient worlds of India, China, and Southeast Asia, forging a unique cultural and economic landscape. Let us embark on a journey to uncover the secrets of this majestic empire and unravel the mysteries that lie hidden in the shadows of time. In the misty dawn of the 3rd century CE, the Malay archipelago, a vast expanse of islands and waterways, was abuzz with the sounds of commerce and cultural exchange. The strategic location of this region, nestled between the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea, had long made it an attractive hub for merchants and traders from distant lands. As the Roman Empire's influence began to wane in the Western world, a new power was rising in the East, one that would come to dominate the maritime trade routes and leave an indelible mark on the history of Southeast Asia. The earliest hints of Srivijaya's existence can be found in the writings of Chinese historians, who noted the presence of a powerful kingdom in the region of Sumatra, an island whose lush rainforests and mighty rivers would provide the empire with a fertile cradle. The name Srivijaya itself is derived from the Sanskrit words Shri, meaning prosperity or good fortune, and Vijaya, signifying victory or conquest. This etymology would prove prophetic, as the empire that bore this name would go on to achieve unparalleled prosperity and exert its influence over a vast swath of the Asian maritime world. One of the key factors that contributed to Srivijaya's rise was its strategic location on the Musi River, which flowed into the Strait of Malacca, a narrow waterway connecting the Indian Ocean to the South China Sea. This strait, only 550 miles wide at its narrowest point, funneled trade between India, China, and the Middle East, making it one of the most critical maritime thoroughfares in the ancient world. The Srivijayans, with their mastery of the sea and their expertise in navigating the complex web of islands and waterways, were perfectly positioned to capitalize on this lucrative trade. As we delve deeper into the history of Srivijaya, we find that the empire's founders were likely a group of Malay sailors and traders who had established themselves as a dominant force in the region. These early Srivijayans were drawn from various ethnic groups, including the native Malays, as well as immigrants from India and China, who brought with them their own distinct cultural practices and traditions. This diversity would become a hallmark of the Srivijayan Empire, which would come to encompass a vast array of languages, customs, and beliefs. The city of Palembang, situated on the banks of the Musi River, would eventually emerge as the capital of the Srivijayan Empire. Archaeological excavations have revealed that Palembang was an impressive urban center with extensive trade networks and a sophisticated system of governance. The city's strategic location allowed it to control access to the Strait of Malacca, enabling the Srivijayans to exert their influence over the regional trade and dictate the terms of commerce to other kingdoms and empires. As the 3rd century CE gave way to the 4th, the Srivijayan Empire began to expand its reach, establishing a network of alliances and vassal states that stretched from the Malay Peninsula to the island of Java. This expansion was facilitated by the empire's mastery of the sea, as well as its strategic use of diplomacy and military force. The Srivijayans were skilled navigators and shipbuilders, constructing vessels that could traverse the treacherous waters of the archipelago with ease. Their maritime prowess allowed them to project power across the region, securing key trade routes and establishing a reputation as a formidable naval power. The Srivijayan Empire's growth was also fueled by its adoption of Buddhism, which had been introduced to the region from India. The new faith brought with it a rich cultural heritage, including art, literature, and philosophy, which would have a profound impact on the development of Southeast Asian civilization. The Srivijayans were particularly drawn to the Mahayana school of Buddhism, which emphasized the attainment of enlightenment through compassion and wisdom. This philosophical orientation would shape the empire's values and inform its relations with neighboring kingdoms and empires. As the Srivijayan Empire's adoption of Buddhism deepened, its capital city, Palembang, became a hub of Buddhist learning and culture. The city's scholars and monks studied the sacred texts of the Mahayana tradition, including the Lotus Sutra and the Prajnaparamita Sutras, which emphasized the importance of compassion, wisdom, and the attainment of enlightenment. This philosophical orientation had a profound impact on the empire's values and informed its relations with neighboring kingdoms and empires. The Srivijayans established strong diplomatic ties with the Buddhist kingdoms of India, such as the Gupta Empire, and exchanged scholars, monks, and merchants with these regions. One of the most significant consequences of Srivijaya's adoption of Buddhism was the development of a unique artistic and architectural style, which blended Indian, Chinese, and indigenous Malay influences. The empire's craftsmen created exquisite sculptures, reliefs, and temple complexes that reflected the Mahayana ideals of compassion and wisdom. The Borobudur temple complex in central Java, built during this period, is a testament to the Srivijayan Empire's artistic and cultural achievements. This magnificent structure, adorned with over 2,600 relief panels and 504 Buddha statues, represents the culmination of Mahayana Buddhist thought and art in Southeast Asia. The Srivijayan Empire's expansion during the 5th and 6th centuries CE was also marked by the establishment of trade relationships with other regions. The empire's merchants traded extensively with China, exchanging spices, textiles, and precious stones for Chinese silk, porcelain, and tea. The Srivijayans also established trade ties with the Arab world, which had begun to exert a significant influence on the Indian Ocean trade network. The empire's strategic location at the intersection of these trade routes allowed it to accumulate vast wealth and exert significant economic influence over the region. The reign of King Jayanasa, who ruled Srivijaya from circa 670 to 702 CE, marked a significant turning point in the empire's history. During his reign, the empire expanded its territories, conquering several neighboring kingdoms and establishing vassal states in the Malay Peninsula and Sumatra. King Jayanasa also strengthened the empire's diplomatic ties with China, sending several embassies to the Tang court and receiving Chinese envoys in return. The Srivijayan Empire's relations with China were further solidified through the exchange of scholars, monks, and artisans, who introduced new technologies, artistic styles, and philosophical ideas to the region. As the Srivijayan Empire's relations with China continued to flourish during the 8th century CE, the empire's capital city, Palembang, became a major center of Buddhist learning and culture. This magnificent structure, adorned with intricate carvings and statues of Buddhist deities, represents the culmination of Mahayana Buddhist thought and art in Southeast Asia. The reign of King Balaputra, who ruled Srivijaya from circa 810 to 835 CE, marked a significant phase in the empire's history. The Srivijayan Empire's trade relationships with other regions also continued to flourish during this period. The empire's merchants traded extensively with the Arab world, exchanging spices, textiles, and precious stones for Arabian horses, copper, and other luxury goods. The Srivijayans also established trade ties with the Indian subcontinent, exchanging Buddhist scriptures and artifacts for Indian textiles, metals, and other commodities. The 9th century CE saw the rise of the Sailendra dynasty in central Java, which would eventually become a major rival to the Srivijayan Empire. The Sailendras were also adherents of Mahayana Buddhism and established a powerful kingdom that stretched from the Indonesian archipelago to the Malay Peninsula. The Srivijayan Empire's relations with the Sailendras were complex and multifaceted, marked by periods of cooperation and conflict. The two empires competed for control of the regional trade routes and resources, but they also exchanged scholars, monks, and artisans who introduced new ideas and technologies to each other's courts. As the 9th century CE progressed, the Srivijayan Empire's relations with the Sailendra dynasty continued to evolve, marked by a complex interplay of cooperation and competition. The two empires engaged in a series of diplomatic exchanges, with the Srivijayans sending emissaries to the Sailendra court, including a notable embassy led by a Buddhist monk named Yi Jing, who traveled to central Java in 860 CE. Yi Jing's mission was not only to strengthen ties between the two empires, but also to acquire rare Buddhist scriptures and artifacts, which he successfully obtained and brought back to the Srivijayan capital. Meanwhile, the Sailendras were expanding their kingdom, conquering several neighboring territories and establishing a powerful presence in the region. The Srivijayans, however, maintained their control over the strategic trade routes, leveraging their maritime prowess to dominate the regional commerce. In 875 CE, the Srivijayan Empire was ruled by King Indravarman, who oversaw a period of significant cultural and artistic achievement. As the Srivijayan Empire continued to thrive, it also faced challenges from neighboring kingdoms, including the Khmer Empire, which was expanding its territories in mainland Southeast Asia. In 916 CE, the Khmer Empire launched a series of military campaigns against the Srivijayans, seeking to conquer their territories and gain control over the regional trade routes. The Srivijayans, however, resisted fiercely, leveraging their maritime power and diplomatic alliances to repel the Khmer attacks. The reign of King Sektivarman, who ruled the Srivijayan Empire from circa 920 to 940 CE, marked a significant phase in the empire's history. During his reign, the empire strengthened its ties with the Chinese Song dynasty, which had recently come to power in China. The Srivijayans sent several embassies to the Song court, including a notable mission led by a Buddhist monk named Gunabhadra, who traveled to China in 925 CE. The Srivijayan Empire's relations with the Chinese Song dynasty continued to flourish during this period, with the two empires engaging in extensive trade and cultural exchanges. The Srivijayans imported Chinese porcelain, silk, and other luxury goods, while exporting spices, textiles, and precious stones to China. The empire's craftsmen also adopted Chinese artistic styles and techniques, incorporating them into their own unique cultural traditions. As the 10th century progressed, the Srivijayan Empire continued to navigate the complex web of alliances and rivalries that define the regional politics of Southeast Asia. In 960 CE, the empire's ruler, King Srivijayan, sent a diplomatic mission to the Chinese Song dynasty, led by a Buddhist monk named Tian Shizai. The mission aimed to strengthen ties between the two empires and secure Chinese support against the growing threat of the Khmer Empire. Tian Shizai's embassy was successful, and he returned to Srivijaya with a cargo of precious gifts, including Chinese porcelain, silk, and rare Buddhist scriptures. Meanwhile, the Khmer Empire, under the rule of King Jayavarman V, continued to expand its territories, posing a significant threat to Srivijayan dominance in the region. In 965 CE, the Khmers launched a series of military campaigns against the Srivijayans, seeking to conquer their territories and gain control over the strategic trade routes that connected India and China. Despite these challenges, the Srivijayan Empire continued to thrive, with its capital, Palembang, remaining a major center of trade and culture in Southeast Asia. In 980 CE, the empire's ruler, King Maravijaya Tungavarman, oversaw a period of significant cultural and artistic achievement with the construction of several notable temples and monuments, including the famous temple complex at Muaratakus. However, the Srivijayan Empire's fortunes began to decline in the 11th century, as the Khmer Empire continued to expand its territories and the Chinese Song dynasty began to withdraw its support. In 1025 CE, the Khmers launched a devastating attack on the Srivijayan capital, Palembang, sacking the city and killing many of its inhabitants. The Srivijayan Empire never fully recovered from this blow, and it eventually fragmented into several smaller kingdoms, including the Kingdom of Dharmasraya and the Kingdom of Jambi. In 1068 CE, the Kingdom of Dharmasraya, which had emerged as one of the most powerful successor states to the Srivijayan Empire, sent a diplomatic mission to the Chinese Song dynasty, led by a Buddhist monk named Dharmapala. The mission aimed to strengthen ties between the two empires and secure Chinese support against the growing threat of the Tamil Chola Empire, which had begun to expand its territories in Southeast Asia. However, the Kingdom of Dharmasraya's efforts were ultimately unsuccessful, and it was eventually conquered by the Tamil Chola Empire in 1090 CE. The Kingdom of Jambi, another successor state to the Srivijayan Empire, continued to resist the Chola Empire's advances, but it too was eventually conquered in 1097 CE. The fall of the Srivijayan Empire and its successor states marked the end of a major era in Southeast Asian history as the region began to be shaped by new powers and influences. The legacy of the Srivijayan Empire, however, continued to be felt, with its cultural and artistic achievements remaining an important part of the region's heritage. In 1178 CE, the Indonesian archipelago was visited by a Chinese diplomat named Zhao Rugua, who wrote extensively about the region's culture, trade, and politics. providing valuable insights into the aftermath of the Srivijayan Empire's decline. As the 13th century progressed, the region formerly dominated by the Srivijayan Empire began to be shaped by new powers, including the Kingdom of Singhasari and the Majapahit Empire. The Majapahit Empire, which emerged in the 14th century, would eventually become one of the most powerful empires in Southeast Asian history, stretching from the Indonesian archipelago to the Malay Peninsula. From its humble beginnings to its rise as a dominant power in Southeast Asia, the Srivijayan Empire's impact on trade, culture, and politics continues to resonate throughout the region. Its story serves as a testament to the ingenuity, resilience, and creativity of the human spirit, reminding us that even the most powerful empires will eventually fade, but their contributions to our shared heritage will endure. Thank you for joining me throughout this historical journey. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, remember that, to understand the present, we must first understand the past.